They are masters of their craft, magnificent scientists with an unusual mission: to search for intelligent life in the cosmos. The search for extraterrestrial civilizations represents an attempt to capture signals from planets surrounding stars distant from Earth and transform them into forms akin to radio or television broadcasts. If intelligent life truly exists in the cosmos, its discovery would allow us to understand the universe more deeply and perhaps realize that we are not alone in this vast expanse. In the first part of our narrative, we are transported to Hat Creek, California. Soon the sun will rise over the Sierra Nevada desert, and Rick Foster, a member of an elite group of scientists engaged in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, has risen very early. Today, he will receive new equipment, a satellite dish with a diameter of 6 meters. Rick lives in Northern California, far from cities and air traffic, and every morning in his old pickup truck, he heads to the listening station where signals from space are received. The group to which Rick belongs is known as SETI. They conduct unusual research aimed at finding extraterrestrial civilizations. Rick explains, "We are looking for something similar to radio waves coming from space, likely directed at us. We are searching for an intelligent civilization with technology capable of emitting such radio waves, one that is trying to make contact with us." The scientists are searching for a signal that could originate from representatives of a highly advanced extraterrestrial civilization. Sometimes it takes a month to hear something worthy of attention. When this happens, the tracking computers emit a signal that should stand out from the general noise. This signal is markedly different from other noises, and everything else is significantly weaker than it. It closely resembles what they expect to hear, but unfortunately, it fails the verification. The frequency of the signal lies in a wave range where interference from satellites is too strong, and this is not a message from an extraterrestrial civilization. But where then are the aliens hiding? Or perhaps their search is a futile endeavor. Could it be that the electronic equipment is not yet sensitive enough to detect the signal? To answer these questions, Rick Foster and his colleagues are building the most sensitive ear, a universal radio telescope named Allen. In place of the old antenna, hundreds of devices will be installed over the next few years, listening to the cosmos. After years of research that yielded no results, the scientists eagerly await success. According to the plans of the researchers, the telescope will consist of 350 antennas connected to each other. A supercomputer will select the data stream from the multitude of incoming signals, which will then be analyzed by scientists. Global listening to space begins. Until now, there have been no definitive signals from intelligent beings, but the network has never before had its own equipment capable of operating around the clock. This device will allow them to continuously listen to space, and new research in the next 50 years will answer the question of whether we are alone. Frank Drake, an astronomer who first initiated scientifically grounded searches for extraterrestrial intelligence, has become a legend in this field. In 1960, the search for aliens was a topic for comic books and cheap novels, but Drake saw this as an opportunity to expand the horizons of humanity. He made the first attempts to establish contact with potential inhabitants of distant stars. Our searches were focused on the 2 closest stars. For 2 months, we conducted a survey using a single-channel receiver tuned to the frequency of hydrogen atom oscillations, but we did not detect any signals from those 2 stars, he recalls. Despite the failure, Drake breathed life into a new branch of science and gained followers all over the world. In 1977, a signal was received in Ohio, and the computer produced a mysterious combination of numbers that became known as the WOW signal. Astronomer Jerry Eman, filled with admiration, recorded the word WOW on a computer printout when he detected the mysterious signal in 1977. However, just 27 seconds later, this signal suddenly disappeared, and astronomers frantically tried to recover it, but to no avail. To this day, it remains a mystery where exactly this signal came from. It is difficult to imagine the power of parabolic antennas. Even if one whispers from a distance of 20 meters, it will seem as if one is speaking directly into the ear. A microphone at that distance will not be able to distinguish whether I was speaking into the antenna or directly into it. This is how we search for extraterrestrial civilizations. In Johannesburg, South Africa, a group of specialists from the SETI network operates. which remains unknown to the general public. This is an international team with unusual biographies and professional experiences that do not fit within the framework of traditional science. Dr. Kent Cullers, a physicist and NASA consultant, is one of the most sought-after specialists in this field. He became the prototype of the blind scientist Dr. Clark in the film Contact. Despite his congenital blindness, Kent compensates for this deficiency with his talent and willpower. Cullers specializes in algorithms and mathematical formulas designed to organize the chaos of the universe. He has developed methods that allow for significantly faster searches for extraterrestrial signals. Thanks to computers, the work has become hundreds of times faster than ever before. Over the course of 50 years, instead of just a few hundred stars, scientists will be able to explore an entire galaxy. As a blind physicist, Kent spends a lot of time visualizing what is happening, for without a complete understanding of the situation, it is impossible to determine whether a solution to an equation makes sense. Physics should help transcend our senses and see both the largest and the smallest. In his daily life, Kent requires assistance. His computer converts voice into formulas and prints them in Braille, while a clock with a rising lid aids him in orientation. Perhaps his expert assessments are in demand because he develops new ways to comprehend the invisible world every day. Like his colleagues in California, scientists in Johannesburg plan to create a giant SKA telescope that will be able to explore the universe to its most distant corners. Kent Cullers participates in one of the first briefings where it is discussed that the telescope is intended for the discovery of unknown numbers. Scientists suspect that luck will find them here, revealing to humanity not the things already known, but those that no earthling can imagine. The SKA system will operate faster than all its predecessors, tuning into the frequency ranges used by the network's receivers. Signals may be very weak, and they will need to be amplified for measurement. It may be possible to create a new algorithm that will allow processing all radioastronomical data simply by looking at a monitor, thereby distinguishing a signal of extraterrestrial origin. In the exploration of the universe, Kent has no equal. 4,000 to 5,000 radio antennas form a gigantic spiral that crosses several countries. Governments of 17 states have agreed to fund the construction of this installation in the amount of €1.5 billion. After careful selection, only South Africa and Australia remained, both of which have desert areas sufficient for the installation of this gigantic device. The surface area of the capturing elements of the device is unmatched by any known telescope. The construction is suitable for any astronomical research. In fact, most astronomers are convinced that there are trillions of planets similar to Earth, and on some of them, there must be life. For centuries, people have gazed at the stars with admiration. Scientists have wondered about the possibility of life on these stars. Many of them were sentenced to death for their revolutionary ideas. In ancient times, the Greek philosopher Democritus proposed the hypothesis that the glowing points in the sky represent distant worlds. He believed that some of them are inhabited by living beings. Such a suggestion shocked his contemporaries. They believed that the stars revolve around the Earth. Only a few astronomers concluded that the stars could be other suns. With intelligent beings, he believed in an infinite universe filled with many suns and stars. However, representatives of the Catholic Church held a different opinion. Rome, Italy. In the Vatican, reflections on the creation of the world were not approved. Those who dared to deviate from the official position of the Church were severely punished. The Inquisition urged Giordano Bruno to renounce his ideas. But he did not yield. In the year 1600, in the Campo de' Fiori Square in Rome, Giordano Bruno was publicly burned at the stake. He is still considered a martyr of science worldwide. Only 400 years later did the Pontifical Council for Culture recognize the execution as unjust, but this cannot be considered a full rehabilitation. Brother Gaia Consolmania and Jesuit, Giordano Bruno wrote about other universes and was burned at the stake. Therefore, people conclude that one was the cause of the other. In fact, the Church has always supported the idea of the plurality of universes. This was stated by Thomas Aquinas. In the year 1277, a bishop declared that anyone who disputes the concept of multiple universes denies the very authority of the Lord. This proves that the burning of Giordano Bruno had nothing to do with science. He was simply a strange, obsessed man with a set of provocative theological ideas. The castle of Gandolfo is the summer residence of the Pope. Since Bruno, much has changed in the Vatican. Today, the Holy Church has hired several astronomers to study the cosmos in the interests of the Church. Brother Gaia Consolmania studies astronomy in Boston. He explores the universe on behalf of the Vatican and publishes works on the search for extraterrestrial civilizations. For us, there is one important question. Should we baptize aliens? Only if they ask for it. Gaia and Jesuit. His views lie on the border of faith and science. He contemplates even provocative questions such as who should convert whom to their faith and whether we should make contact with extraterrestrials. What if these beings feed on methane and sprinkling them with water could destroy them? I do not think we need such a baptism. On the other hand, our church has the concept of an angel and a devil. It is quite obvious that they have their own notions of the salvation of the soul. No one would think to go and baptize an angel. It seems to me that these beings, if they truly exist, have their own relationship with God. In addition to the two observatories at the summer residence of the Pope, there is also a laboratory for analyzing samples of fallen meteorites. Here, Brother Consolmania studies meteorites under a microscope in search of traces of extraterrestrial life. Astronomy is the only secular science in which the Vatican participates. When you begin to understand the nature and structure of the universe, you find a piece of God within yourself. You start to realize how He wanted to see this world. There are many theories about how the planets were created, and only by finding the one true version and understanding how everything actually was, do we begin to act like God. For some, it is God's creation. For others, it is an astronomical phenomenon, fragments of meteorites that occasionally fall to Earth from space. Guy Consolmania is the keeper of one of the largest collections of meteorites in the world. More than 1,000 samples of meteoritic rock are collected on the first floor of Palazzo Castel Gandolfo. People who were executed in the Middle Ages in the name of the Holy Inquisition would be astonished by the Church's openness regarding extraterrestrials. Science remained skeptical about the existence of extraterrestrial life for a long time, and only in the 16th century did a sort of thaw begin. In the 1960s, discussions about intelligent life in space became the norm, whereas just 10 years prior, it was considered something inappropriate. In the United States, an extraterrestrial fever gripped the country, and even politicians began to take an active interest in the search for intelligent extraterrestrial beings. The government allocated significant funds for research. In 1963, the Arecibo radio telescope, with a diameter of 300 meters, was installed in Puerto Rico, located in a mountain valley. With the help of this super instrument, the search for signals from other civilizations took on new meaning. Proponents of this idea awaited news every second, but the sensitive sensors of Arecibo detected nothing but cosmic noise. After several years of silence, disappointment engulfed all participants in the project, and investors began to doubt the feasibility of continuing the search. The only message from the universe was clear: there is no one here. You are alone. Dr. Seth Shostak, an astronomer, notes, "Our galaxy consists of billions of solar systems. If each star were represented as a grain of sand, they could fill a truck. And the number of grains of sand that we have been able to explore would fit in your palm. We have only just begun to study our own galaxy. I am not surprised that we have not discovered anyone yet." Clearly, at this pace, it will take an eternity. Thousands of years of sifting through sand if you want to find something. But fortunately, our searches are gaining momentum. I think it won't last that long. San Francisco, California. In the program Lonely Skies, Dr. Shostak shares his thoughts on the new telescope and how this tool will accelerate the search for extraterrestrial signals. Personally, I don't care if aliens are discovered in 500 years. I hope we can find them in the next 2 decades while I am still living on this planet. South of San Francisco lies one of the wealthiest regions in the United States, Silicon Valley, home to many computer companies. Seth Shostak and his colleagues from the SETI Research Group are also based here. people in Silicon Valley are obsessed with unusual ideas and have the financial resources to invest millions in projects like SETI. It is hard to believe that just 30 to 40 years ago, this area was agricultural land where fruits were grown. Seth works as an astronomer at the SETI Institute in Mountain View, an independent research center aimed at investigating the origins of life in the universe. The institute employs around 100 scientists studying the development of life in space. Their main task is the installation of a giant radio telescope in Northern California. Funding for the project has become the biggest challenge for Seth and his associates. For 15 years, the SETI project was part of a NASA program, and all SETI branches across the country were funded by this agency. It was not too costly. Even the largest expenditures accounted for only 1/1,000th of NASA's budget. However, in 1993, this came to an end. Illusions were shattered, and questions about the feasibility of SETI projects began to be raised by members of the United States Congress. They reduced the budget of NASA allocated for the network projects and concluded that in 30 years, not a single Martian had been discovered. William Proxmire began to speak out against the research, deeming it pointless. He awarded the network the Golden Fleece Prize, an award given to the biggest squanderer in the nation. In response, the scientists organized their own campaign to restore their reputation. However, in 1993, the network division at NASA was closed. Jill Tater, the First Lady of the Network Research Center, was included in the list of 100 most significant figures in history by Times Magazine in 2004. In the film Contact, her role was played by Jodie Foster. Nevertheless, in 1993, Tater was denied funding as a network researcher. She felt the need to roll up her sleeves and become independent. Together with her colleagues, they sat in a conference room and began studying books on how to make money. In each of them, they found only one chapter dedicated to how to beg for large sums. They urgently needed funds, and they focused on high-potential investors. Millions were spent on building a capturing facility on the volcanic rocks of the Sierra Nevada desert. Most of the telescope project was financed by one of the founders of Microsoft, Paul Allen, who paid $25 million just for the antenna and facility to bear his name. The telescope was supposed to be built within a few years. On it, one could see the names of Elliot Gilliam and Dan Glasgow, two young Microsoft engineers who considered the technology fantastic. They invested their own money and received a grant from Microsoft for their philanthropic contribution. Now they became the owners of this telescope and enjoyed observing it through a webcam, sometimes helping with the software. There was an opportunity for anyone interested to purchase one of these telescopes and immortalize their name on it for $100,000. Although the amount seemed enormous for a radio telescope, it was a small sum. The action now shifts to the semi-desert of Karoo in South Africa, where the chirping of crickets can be heard, and there are neither people nor radio stations around. This is the perfect place to search for radio signals from space, as there will be no interference from earthly radio signals. Kent Kaller's task was to find a suitable location for the new telescope within the framework of the SKA project, funded by the European Union. Astronomers faced a difficult choice regarding the location of the new telescope, but an even more complex task was deciding which of the billions of stars in the sky the antennas of the network should listen to. Since radio telescopes can only listen to one star at a time, the answer to the question, which one, determined the success of the entire research program. At the Lick Observatory in California, astronomer Lawrence Doyle spent many sleepless nights pondering this question. He used the nighttime hours for research, working when others were resting. To determine where our cosmic neighbors reside, he dedicated himself to the hunt for exoplanets, planets outside of the solar system. These celestial bodies are so far from Earth that they are barely distinguishable, even in the telescopes of the largest observatories. For many years, astronomers knew nothing about such planets, only speculating about their existence, but no one had seen them. In 1995, Michael Mayer and his colleague Didier Queloz discovered the first exoplanet, which turned out to be a giant. However, Lawrence Doyle was searching for different objects, small planets similar to Earth, which were very difficult to find. Dr. Lawrence Doyle emphasizes, the discovery of exoplanets is very important for the network's program. With their help, we want to provide scientists with accurate signal samples that they should be looking for. As far as we know, life is also emerging and existing on other planets. If we can find a planet of the right size and distance from its sun, we will be able to capture perfectly accurate signal samples. In the search for extraterrestrial civilizations, astronomers face enormous difficulties. Discovering new planets is extremely challenging, as they are too small and obscured compared to stars. One star can emit light equivalent to the explosion of 1 million atomic bombs, while planets merely reflect the light of these stars. To detect these dark celestial bodies, astronomers need to employ cunning. At this point, the researcher measures the brightness of the star captured in the photograph. Usually, they record up to 50,000 stars simultaneously, and then compare how the brightness changes from image to image. This allows them to construct a light curve. In one observation, the brightness of a star changed. This method of studying motion has become a favorite technique among astronomers in the discovery of exoplanets. Although the planets remain invisible to telescopes, the change in brightness of a star indicates their presence. Based on the data obtained, scientists can calculate the sizes of the planets and even the chemical composition of their atmospheres. In 2007, a team of European researchers discovered the first Earth-like planet, Gliese 581c. This discovery became a sensation for astronomers and a hope for researchers. Now specialists were able to suggest that Earth-like planets are not a rarity. The discovered planet is located far enough from its star, making the likelihood of a temperate climate on it quite real. However, the question of the presence of life on this planet remains open. Dr. Paul Schuch, the executive director of the SETI Institute, emphasizes the importance of radio signals in the search for extraterrestrial life. SETI is the largest organization in the world dedicated to this topic. He asserts that if we truly live in a universe filled with life, it can be assumed that at least a few civilizations are advanced enough to send radio signals. On Earth, he states, we have developed technologies that allow us to receive signals from other planets. His satellite dish is pointed toward the sky, but it is not for television. Paul is searching for evidence of extraterrestrial beings by listening to microwaves coming from space. The SETI project was once funded by NASA, and it was planned to conduct research for 10 years. However, just 1 year later, Congress cut the funding, which, according to Schuch, confirms the absence of intelligent beings in Washington. Paul Schuch, the embodiment of skepticism toward government organizations, created the first commercial satellite antenna in the 1960s. The money from the patent he used to realize his dream and built his own SETI station near his home, naming it My Little Antenna. Due to a conflict with neighbors, he had to plant trees to hide the antenna from prying eyes. 3 months of the year, the antenna is buried under snow and not used, but now, as the snow begins to melt, Paul can start the spring cleaning. He notes that hornets have taken a liking to this place for their nests, and now is the right time to get rid of them while they are still asleep. Paul admires the beauty of the surrounding nature and strives to prove to his colleagues from Silicon Valley that projects aimed at searching for extraterrestrial life can be realized without sponsorship from computer magnates, using simple yet ingenious tricks. In the end, all signals end up in an ordinary coffee can. Paul accidentally discovered that a standard can is perfect for tuning into the microwave signals they are searching for. He chose the brand of coffee shock full of nuts, as he believed the brand name wonderfully reflects the essence of their work. At that moment, a call comes in. A colleague from Germany reports a suspicious signal and asks Paul for help. Peter Wright from Heidelberg checks if Paul can see the signal on his equipment. "Hold on, I'm picking something up," he says, adjusting the instruments. "Yes, there is a signal, and it's quite strong." Members of the Amateur SETI Association use the internet to avoid premature hopes. The telescope easily distinguishes between signals and noise, but when the signal is attempted to be heard on the other side of the globe, errors are possible. It's quite strong, I think even too strong. This is interference from a satellite, not from Earth, but also not from aliens, he notes, continuing his work. Damn, that was exciting, just 30 milliseconds. At first it really did sound like aliens, but it's just a satellite. According to Wright, the team receives many interfering signals from satellites. About once every 2 months we get at least one promising signal, he adds. Therefore, They check if a similar signal has been received in different parts of the Earth. This is the strength of our network league. When people in different corners of the world work together, we can confirm or refute our discovery. In Heidelberg, radio engineer Professor Peter Wright demonstrates in his garden how accessible the search for extraterrestrial signals is even for people on a limited budget. A Scot by origin, he strives to inspire as many amateur researchers as possible. At first glance, this equipment seems very expensive. In reality, the price we pay is more than acceptable. Sometimes for 25 euros, you can buy a device that used to cost thousands of euros, he explains. Wright is happy to assist newcomers in setting up listening stations to search for aliens, giving advice on which receivers are best to use and where to find data processing programs. To enter the world of the network, an amateur needs a little more than technical know-how and immense patience, he adds. Members of the Network League call the Argus project their Marshall Plan in science, which must be implemented without government subsidies. You set up a parabolic antenna in your yard on 3 bricks and point it at the sky. It looks like a giant bird feeder, says Wright. In the middle, we embed a small power element that is not difficult to make yourself, and a special receiver and software can be purchased. It will cost you 2,000 to 3,000 euros. It is very effective, and anyone interested can participate. At the annual meeting of the Amateur League of the Network in Heidelberg, Wright shares the advantages of his listening setup, while the other participants showcase their homemade antennas and discuss their discoveries and plans. The next lecture is about to start. Please enter the auditorium, he invites. Nearly half a century after the beginning of SETI research, participants begin to question the meaning of their search. Ken Collars, like his colleagues, sometimes doubts whether he is on the right path. Will I live to see the day when contact is made, he ponders. Scientists are confident that we are not a miracle of the universe. You can do some calculations to convince yourself of this. Personally, I do not intend to convince anyone of anything, but I would not spend 25 years of my life searching for signals whose existence I am not sure of, he says. When visitors come to them, they often ask, "So, have you seen anything interesting lately? Anything you haven't yet shared with the public?" And Collars always replies, "No, nothing so far." Every participant in the SETI program, in Rick Foster's opinion, strives to live to see the moment when their experiment succeeds and contact with extraterrestrial civilization becomes a reality. He shares his thoughts. It would be a shame to retire, die, and not get to see success. That would indeed be very disappointing. However, as he acknowledges, that could happen. Foster is convinced that the discovery of extraterrestrial life will have enormous significance for humanity, affecting not only science but also culture, technology, philosophy, and future plans. We live only once, and we want to spend our lives on something we consider important, he says. For him and other participants in the project, the discovery of another civilization is the most important thing they can do. He also reflects on how people perceive intelligent extraterrestrials. Many believe that if you see an intelligent extraterrestrial in the dark, you might mistake it for a human. I do not know. Foster emphasizes that nature is very inventive, and his conception of intelligence lies in the ability to create and manage something like a radio station operating in the interplanetary range. I will be perfectly satisfied if they are little green men or huge blue women or something in between. Meanwhile, on the site of the ALN antenna installation, workers are mounting a new antenna. The construction of the interplanetary station and the listening for signals make the detection of extraterrestrial signals increasingly likely with each passing day. However, Foster wonders about the implications of this discovery. How dangerous can contact with aliens become? He cannot imagine a more terrifying nightmare than an encounter with so-called superior technology from space. Does life exist on other planets, or is it merely a fabrication of Hollywood screenwriters? Scientists, while envisioning the future, explore what might lie behind the discovery of UFOs in Nevada. One of the astronomers recalls, "We saw a huge gray disk covering an area of 3 or 4 city blocks." The search for aliens remains a dark spot on the border of science and science fiction. Astronomers are already developing a scenario for the day when contact will occur. How will we communicate with them? One of the researchers wonders, Perhaps knowledge of the language of intelligent marine beings will help create an interplanetary grammar. All of this will be revealed in the next episode of Contact in Space.